Okay, so we looked at how to draw with lines, and we looked briefly at object drawing versus merged drawing modes. Let's take a look at the rectangle and oval tools in this video, and I'm also going to show you how to create perfect squares and perfect circles. So I'm going to choose the rectangle tool. We've already seen that there are other tools under this, including the oval, the rectangle primitive, the oval primitive, as well as the polystar. So we're going to start with the rectangle tool. The rectangle is going to draw with both a stroke and a fill, and I'm going to click black and white as my defaults. And then so you can see the fill, since we're on a white background, I'm going to change that color. I'll just choose red. So I've got my rectangle tool chosen. I can also change the colors over here in the properties panel, as well as the stroke width. I'm going to leave it at 5. And to create a rectangle, we simply go to one corner and we drag down to the diagonally opposite corner. There's my rectangle. We mentioned with lines, if you hold down the Shift key, which is considered the constrainer key, we can draw perfect horizontal, vertical, and 45-degree lines. If we hold down the Shift key with the rectangle tool, we will draw perfect squares. And just as I manipulated lines with the selection and subselection tools, I can do the same thing with rectangles. I can select individual lines and move them away. If I double click on a stroke or line, we'll select the entire stroke or all the strokes that are connected to that. If I had other objects overlapping this that were merged, it would select all the strokes that are connected, and I can pull those separately. So see, there's really two different objects here in terms of the fill and the stroke. In reality, there's really 5. We've got the fill, and in this case 4 different stroke segments. Just as we bent lines, I can take the selection tool and approach a edge, whether it has a stroke or if it's just a fill, and I can bend it. Let me undo that a couple times. Just so you can see that it doesn't have to be a stroke, I'm going to pull the stroke away, and now I can come to the fill, and I can also just bend the fill. So I'll do Control Z to undo that, and I'll bring my strokes back over. And if I hold down the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac, I can add points. And any of those segments I can bend. Okay, I'm going to do Control Z several times. We'll get back to our square. With the subselection tool, or the hollow arrow, I can click on the object, and I can grab a point, or select a point, and move it. If I hold down the Alt key on that point and drag, I can turn it into a curved point and get the tangential handles, and manipulate the arc with the tangential handles. So again, it's Alt or Option on the Mac, Alt on the PC, Option on the Mac, and just drag the point, turns it into a curved point. Now I'm going to undo a few times. And I can also grab a line and move the entire object as well. And I can do that also with the selection tool. Notice if I click on the fill, that selects just the fill with the selection tool. If I double click on the fill, that selects the fill and all of the strokes. Okay, I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to create another rectangle. This time it's for the fill. I'm going to choose a null color, or no color. You see this line, this little white box with a red line through it, means there's going to be no color applied, and I can draw rectangles that have no color. Notice they are overlapping here. These are merged, so I can select individual segments and delete them, or manipulate the individual segments. I'm going to undo that. I can take the paint bucket and select a fill color. And when I click inside an enclosed merged area, I can paint with that color. It's like spilling the paint can inside a room and the paint seeping to the walls of that room. Doesn't go beyond that. So if I draw a rectangle, and again I'm still working in merged drawing, I'm going to change colors now, and I'm going to draw another rectangle, and then I'm going to select that rectangle by double clicking on it with the selection tool and move it. Notice what happens. It took a bite out of the one underneath of it because these are merged drawings. Once I draw something on top of another merged object, that merged area that was behind is now gone. I'm going to draw a rectangle, and we're going to get a fill color. This time I'm going to turn the object drawing mode on, and I'm going to deselect with the selection tool by clicking off of it. I'm going to get a different stroke or fill color, and I'm going to draw another rectangle that overlaps, so I'll draw a perfect square this time. Now because these were drawn with object drawing mode turned on, they do not interact. In fact, I can come back and select that first rectangle, and you'll see the border here over that stroke, and I can move it. The second square did not take a bite out of it. In fact, I can also right click on it and choose Arrange, Bring to Front, and now it's on top. Or I can right click on it and choose Arrange, Send to Back or Send Backwards, and put it back behind the square. I'm going to select everything and delete it. Let's take a look at the oval tool. The oval tool works just like the rectangle tool in that if you think of a box around your oval, you're going to drag from one point in the corner to the diagonally opposite point. So I'm dragging from here to here. Now I have object drawing mode turned on so you can see that border. I'm going to undo that and go back to merge drawing, and there's my oval. Now just as we manipulated lines and rectangles, I can take the selection tool and I can begin to mold that oval. And if I hold down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac, I can add points. If I hold down the Shift key, that constrainer key, we can draw perfect circles. I take the subselection tool, I can again grab individual points and pull them out. And I can manipulate the individual tangential handles for various points. Hopefully you're seeing that by using lines, rectangles, and ovals, we can pretty much create any shape we want. And once I've drawn an oval, I can always select the stroke, change its width, change its color, and I can select the fill and change its color. If I click on just the fill, I'm selecting the fill, I can pull it away from the stroke. If I double click on the fill, I'm going to get the fill and the stroke together. So I'm going to select all of that and delete it. And I'm going to take the oval tool again. We saw that we can drag from one corner, the diagonally opposite corner of a box surrounding that oval. However, we can also hold down the Alt key or Option key on the Mac and drag out from the center. And if I hold both the Shift and the Alt key, I will draw a circle from the center. That is also true of working with rectangles. If you hold down the Alt key and the Shift key, you can draw a rectangle, or in this case a square, if you hold down the Shift key, from the center outward.